Thank you, Daphne. I'll just share my screen. Let me know if you guys can see my screen. Am I audible?
Yes, Subhash, you are.
Okay, can you guys see the screen?
Yes, it's quite visible.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, great. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Daphne, for the introduction. So I'll be going through the presentation on safety by design. It's more of a awareness and introduction program because the detailed program goes for at least 2 days workshop. So I'll be touching upon these points. What is safety by design? And why is it important for us when we are working in the construction industry? There are certain legislative requirements around the world on this topic. There are a few definitions for you guys to understand. I'm sorry if you guys are not talking. Could you please mute your audio? There's some disturbance in background. Yeah, I was talking about there will be a few definition on this presentation to understand a few slides going ahead. Then I'll be touching upon the risk management part and what are the hierarchy of control measures and how do we review these control measures. Then under UK regulation, there is something called principle of prevention for each designer to understand what it means. And there are a few design information as a designer you need to receive and as well as you need to provide to the other stakeholders in the team. So that's also very important part. And designers risk record, what and how you need to record your risk during the design stage. And then I'll be showing a small table of hazards and also few case studies to show you guys how you should actually look into hazards during your design stage and example of good practice. And in the end, we will have a question and answer round. In between, if any of you guys have any questions, please note it down. So in the end, we can have the round of discussion with everybody. Yeah, so our topic is safety by design. So what safety by design means, if you go by the definition, safety by design, or in other word, for example, in US, it's called prevention through design also, is the concept of applying methods to minimize occupational hazard early in the design process, which emphasizes on optimizing employees' health and safety throughout the life cycle of the project. So if you see the figure on the screen, around the safety by design, you see operation stage, maintenance and repair, demolition and refurbishment, and construction stage. So these are the complete life cycle of a building. So if I talk in basic terms, what does it means? So when we are designing a building, so our aim should be focusing on to eliminating or reducing all the health and safety or environmental risk from our design to ensure that people are not affected due to our design during construction stage, operation stage, maintenance and repair, and even demolition and refurbishment stage. So this is what a basic ideology behind this topic. Just a sec. So why safety by design is so important? If you see the chart above, it shows that 37% of accident on any construction site or any life cycle of the building are due to management or failure of workers, and 35% are because of unsafe design, and 28% because of poor planning during the pre-construction stage. So if you see overall 60% of accident on any life cycle of the building were actually even before started of the construction site. So it means through our design, we can tackle 60% of incident. So it's easier to control hazards or any risk on a building during the planning and design stage itself, because later on it becomes very difficult and it more hierarchical also or more bureaucratic also when we try to tackle these issues during operational or construction phase of the building. So there are certain benefits about safety by design. For example, it reduces cost. So how it reduces cost? Because if our design is safe, there will be less accident and less incident. So obviously there will be a reduction in direct cost and indirect cost. So then we will be prevention eliminating at the source. So even before starting of the work, it's best to cut any hazards at the root cause itself, right? Then we are also meeting the compliance with the legislation. Unfortunately, in India, we don't have any regulation around safety by design, but around the world, UK, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, or you say even US, they have legislation around it. And there is strict penalties around if people or stakeholder of the project are not following it. Then we are also providing safer workplace by our safer design, reduce in injuries and death, improve unsability and productivity. So obviously we are enhancing the productivity because of any accident, we are not losing the man hours work. So when we are talking about innovation here, so we obviously looking for the different ways and positive ways to improve our design stage health and safety. So that's why it considered as innovation at, right? So I'll move to next slide. So I was talking about legislative requirements. For example, in United Kingdom, it's called Construction Design and Management. It's called CDM 2015 regulation. This is the revised regulation in the United Kingdom. Earlier regulation was in 2007. So which they have, there was some bureaucracy in the legislation. So they have updated this. So UK's regulation, it derives from the Europe's C standard. You know, earlier they were part of Europe Union. So in USA, it's called prevention through design, and Australia, Singapore also they follow this. But in India, we don't have any regulation around it. And when we are looking at our design, we also need to focus on design standards. Like for example, you would be aware about National Building Code in India. In United Kingdom, we have British standard codes. Again, US, we have ANSI standard. Europe, we have CN standard. So goes on. So above all these, what we need to consider, if you read here, the structure to be used as a workplace are safe and without risk to health. So that is our primary focus here. That we demonstrate, we have approached design with risk management and whole life cycle approach. So as I informed earlier, we are not only talking about the construction phase, we are also talking about the whole life cycle of the project. Ensure the designer has the right capabilities to design a specific project. So when we are talking about designer, you need to know who are designers. So designer could be an individual, could be an architect or draftsman, or whoever is giving their inputs in terms of design change. That person would be called a designer, as well as in some cases as a company also we go as a designer. For example, I'm working for Arcadis right now, so we are designers in multiple companies. So this role is performed by the team members, not by the individual person. And the appropriate consulting, cooperation and coordination has occurred. So as a designer during the design stage, it's a designer's responsibility to connect with first client to understand what is designed for and take the pre-design information from them. Whatever inputs are there, you need to coordinate with whole design team, contractors. So that's why we are talking about coordination here. So we transfer the right information at the right time. So whenever there are any design change, even during the design stage, it's a designer's responsibility to pass on those information to all the stakeholder of the project, whether it's a contractor or client or other designers. And what it means right time is we should not wait. So it should be like as soon as possible, because we don't want contractor to construct something which was superseded. Yeah, so going forward, there are a few slides for the, especially around risk management. So you need to understand these few basic definition. What is safety? Safety is a state of being protected from potential harm or something that has been designed to protect and prevent harm. Basically, a place is free from any hazards or risk. What is a hazard? A hazard is any agent that can cause harm or damage to human property or the environment. The risk is the possibility or chances of loss, danger, or injury. So basically, risk is is equal to severity into likelihood. So what is severity? It describes the highest level of damage possibly when an accident occurs from the particular hazard. We are talking about impact here. And likelihood is the state of being probable or chance of threat occurring. So it's here we are talking of probability. So severity is how big the impact of any work, and likelihood is how frequently it can occur during any operation or construction stage. So next, I'm be touching upon the risk management. So risk management itself is a different topic itself. So the risk management is the application of hazard identification, how we identify the hazard, assessing risk. Is anybody saying something? Yeah, we will continue. So I was talking about risk management. I'm just touching upon of the basic of risk management, what it is. So it's an application of hazard identification. How do we identify the hazard? I'll explain that to you. And after identifying the hazard, how we assess those risks and how we invent or recommend the risk controls to achieve safe design. So if you see a circle in the right hand side, it has been derived from the management standards. So how we identify hazard? So we have to go by step. This is also a hierarchy. Why I'm saying hierarchy? Because we have to follow these steps. So number one is identify the risk factor. So whenever you are laying out a design, you go through this design and understand what could be the risk factor of this design. Like for example, you're constructing a bridge. So you need to identify, okay, while constructing of a bridge, what could be the hazard? For example, people could fall from height. That is the one risk while construction, right? So that's how you need to identify. Then who can be harmed and how? So who can be harmed? Like for example, workers working during the construction could be harmed. Public could be harmed during the operation time if, for example, walkways you have not provided the guardrails. And how they can be harmed? They can fall. There could be a trip hazards. So then you need to evaluate the risk. Basically, when you are evaluating the risk, you need to understand the consequences of those risks. Like when I was talking about severity and likelihood, when you are evaluating, you need to see how severe that incident could be and how frequently it could happen. So that's the step 3. Then step 4 is record your findings. So you have to maintain a design risk register where you need to record all your findings when you are reviewing the designs. And monitor and review is the last step, because you need to monitor whether whatever you have listed in your records are effective or not. And this comes under management standard, which we call PDCA cycle, plan, do, check, act. So that's why it's a continuous process. And as a designer, you should also know it before you are going for any design, identify the main objectives and outcomes for the design. So you need to liaise with the client and understand from them why they want this project to be done. What are their requirements? What are their execution plan for this project before you go for your actual design? You need to collect all kind of information from all the stakeholders. Establish the intended and foreseeable uses of design as well as the complexity of the project. So again, there will be a specifications of design where everything will be detailed out by the principal designer or the whole design team. Establish the risk management context by identifying the breadth of workplace hazard and relevant application law, code of practice, and design standard. So I've already mentioned you about legislation and code of standards and whatever design standard we follow in India or in future if you're working abroad in any country. So identify the required design discipline, skills, and competency. So here it's very important what we are talking about design disciplines. For example, if you are a civil engineer and in a building, not only civil, there are other disciplines also. We're talking about mechanical, electrical, plumbing. So you should take inputs from all the people, other designer who are actually competent people doing those jobs. So if you are not competent doing those jobs, you should not take up these things, right? So identify the roles and responsibility of stakeholder in the relation to the project. So initial stage itself, there should be a plan and program where the roles and responsibility of each person should be clearly identified. So establish collaborative relationship with clients and other who influence the design outcome. So you have the complete information on the design, what you're building. So for example, some client information we are talking about, before you go for a greenfield project, you need to understand the site well, the which region and domain it falls in. So what kind of the soil you have. Obviously you guys must have studied the soil as well. So is the site is contaminated or what? So accordingly you'll work on your design. And there could be, for example, if a refurbishment project, there could be other risk, environmental risk. For example, if building is old, there could be some component of asbestos, and you know asbestos is banned in many countries and it's illegal to use. However, it's not illegal in India as yet. So I was talking about hierarchy of control. So we follow the Eric PD method to eliminate hazard, or to when we are assessing it. What do you understand by Eric PD? Eliminate the hazard. So it means removing the hazard from source. For example, if any equipment you think it's harmful, do not recommend. If any substance or any process you think it's not safe, you should not recommend those. Then second thing is reduce or substitute the hazards. So for example, substituting is like you could substitute whole or partially. So it's very rare in construction industry that we will get opportunity to substitute whole. So that's why we go for partially. So the hazard giving rise to the risk with something that gives rise to lesser risk. So example is using the hazardous work practice or material, we should avoid it. And we also need to look on number of people working on this particular work, right? And number of working hours. So for example, if you reduce the number of people or number of working hours, so you can actually reduce the probability of hazard. So for example, if you want to fix a ISMB on a site, which is at least, for say example, 14 feet. So there will be a lot of hazard like falling of material, falling of people. And if you need 10 people to work on it, then there will be a welding work, there is a hot work. So this, and then again in future, there will be maintenance issue. So alternatively, you can also go for a precast system. So again, if you go for precast system, which is done in factory, so that will reduce the probability of risk and hazards on site. So next is isolation of the hazard, or we call it engineering control. Isolation focus on the boxing in the hazard or boxing in people to keep them away from the hazard. It's a kind of a physical barrier. For example, a rotating machine is there. If people try to come in contact with that rotating machine, they might get injured even during installation or during maintenance time, right? So we should recommend for a physical guard on that rotating part. So that's called engineering control. For example, with respect to health hazard, we use a lot of diesel generators on site. We also have diesel generator for operations. So there will be a lot of noise and pollution issues. So you need to make sure how you are going to recommend erection of chimney, so there is no issue of pollution, people who are working in the area. Then how you are going to, recommend for them to insulate the diesel generator so there's a reduction of sound, etc. So when we are talking about control of hazard, it's more of an administrative control. When we are considering organizational or technical control, for example, safe system of work, training, supervision of work, etc. And then it comes personal protective equipments. That's actually our last remedy because it's least effective. If you see a chart in a circle, it goes from elimination to PPEs. If you see, it's more effective to least effective. That's why we call it hierarchy of control. So we have to always go from that order whenever we are trying to control any hazards. So when you are reviewing your control measures, we have to follow the RAGS method. So it is important to list down your hazard into these categories. So red is immediate attention we need to give because it might have a high severity or high impact on people working. And then amber Amber, basically we focus on reducing the hazard, because we know on any project we can't eliminate risk or hazard 100%. So we need to advise how we need to reduce it. And green is obviously we are talking about best practice of safe method of working, and we should try to promote these more whenever we are on any project site. So I'll not go in details here. You can see one example. First one is like lack of adequate pre-construction information. So as I told initially, it's very important for designers to collect information before starting of any design work. So examples also I gave you, getting a asbestos survey reports, getting a site survey reports, could be like a site contamination, environmental impact assessment report, etc. And Amber is again, I told you to reduce the impact on site, but again we need to mention if we are retaining any hazards, and that also need to be communicated to all the stakeholders of the projects. So here we are talking about principle of prevention. So it is a legal term as per the Construction Design and Management Regulation 2015 of UK, and as well as followed in the Europe. So UK and Europe was the pioneer in this field or this area of expertise. So that's why all people around the globe, they follow them. So what are the principle of prevention? It's very important for everybody when they are reviewing the design or working on any design. Avoid risk by asking yourself, you can get rid of the problem or hazard altogether. So it's very important for everybody to understand how risks to be analyzed. So it's all about perception, right? So everybody can't see risk as same way. So it's best to work in a team and try to get a feedback from other people also. What do you think of this design, and do you see any other risk? Try to use fresh eyes. So evaluate the risk that cannot be avoided. So here we are talking about Amber racks. So there are certain risks which we cannot avoid. So we need to evaluate those risks and provide the recommendation. For example, these days you see a lot of high-rise building with the facades, right? And you see there are a lot of glass panels they use. So if there is a specification, they have to use the facade panels. So we need to evaluate what could be the risk around those facade panels. For example, could be falling of material even during maintenance stage when people are going to clean, how you are going to clean. So that evaluation, we need to do it. Combating the risk at source. So here we are talking about mitigating all the risk measures at very initial pre-construction and design stage itself. Adapting to technical process, considering new techniques or technology. So we also need to focus on not go by conventional way, but look for the new technologies, how we can reduce these hazards. So for example, I gave you example of facades, right? And when we are cleaning the facades in maintenance stage, majorly you have seen people would be hanging on the monkey ropes and cleaning those facades, but that's not very safe method. So one of our projects, we have recommended them to use the this technology called monorail cleaning. So this project is in Bangalore. So that's what we are talking about here. Next is replacing the dangerous with the non-dangerous or less dangerous. So here what we are talking about, as a designer, you know what could be the impact of material you are suggesting or the design you are suggesting. We are not only talking about aesthetics here. So for example, in India, we still use asbestos sheet for roofing. So you know asbestos sheets are fragile as well, and it's dangerous if anybody inhales the fumes which comes out of asbestos. So the replacement could be, for example, providing a GI sheet or providing concrete slab which is in that design, or providing different tiles. That's kind of example of replacement. Then giving collective protective measures priority over individual protective measures. So what we are talking here, whenever we are recommending any safe measures to do any work, we have to think of a group instead of one person, because when we look of a one person safety, it will get very expensive, right? That's why we have to go for a group. For example, you must have seen a lot of construction site, they provide safety harness to the people, right? just imagine 2000 people working at height and providing safety harness for everybody. That will come up very expensive. So we have to go for collective approach. So the collective approach providing for the group would be providing safety nets around the building and providing hard railing around the building so people don't tend to fall. So which is more collective approach than the individual approach. So making provision so that the worker can organize to reduce exposure to hazard. So here we are talking about the physical barrier. So people don't come into contact with the hazards. For example, if you are doing or construction of any labs and you know there would be a lot of chemicals used inside the lab. So as a designer, you need to analyze what could be the hazard people working around chemicals or nearby the operation or who are working around area. So you could give the physical barrier access system, only authorized people are allowed to go inside. So that's what we are talking about here. Giving appropriate instructions to employees. So here we are talking about risk retention in case even after reviewing everything, we cannot remove all the risk and hazard from the projects. So it's designer's job to inform them whatever tasks they are going to do in the future, what could be the risk associated with that task. So that you talk about instruction and training to employees. So that comes during handover stage as well as during construction stage. So I was talking about design information. It is very important. There are two ways of information. One information you need to obtain and other information you need to provide to the people who are working on the project. So first information is pre-construction information. Same example I gave you, asbestos survey, site surveys, your soil surveys, etc. And obviously you also need to see parameter of the building or construction site you are working on. For example, if you are constructing a building and next to that building there is a petrol bunk, so the whole game changes and your all design specification will also change, right? So that's why these pre-construction information are very important. A client brief including how the project to be finished or to be used, it's also very important. So you also need to understand the outcome of the project, who are the users of the project, whether it's an office space, whether it's a factory. So accordingly you will work on your design. The method for communicating during the design stage. So generally there are weekly design meetings on the project. So all stakeholders are involved in the design meetings, say clients, contractor, and in case there are any design changes or people have any issues or doubts, they can clear during that time. And the information held by others such as other designers. So there could be a possibility you are late in the project or possibility that you are a second designer before you, there was somebody else. So you need to gather all the information from other designers before starting off your own. And also seek information about the if the project is working on if they have any sustainability objectives or like for example LEEDs, IGBC, Indian Green Building Councils. LEEDs is Leadership in Energy and Environment Design. So BEAM is most focused on UK and Europe side. So if they have any such objectives that also need to be covered during the design stage, so you can incorporate those in your designs and successfully we can achieve those objectives. Next, few information as a designer you need to provide. You need to provide the right level of information to the right people at the right time. So in case you see any design changes in between because of like, I'll tell you with my experience, I never seen any design was done at construction stage. And when we completed the building, it was 100% same to same. So obviously there will be a lot of design changes during the construction phase. So those also you need to record and communicate to all the stakeholders. It could be through your email communication. It could be through your during design meetings, and that there are the other platform also which like a digitization platform we use to pass informations. Information should be project specific and suitable and sufficient detail to those who need. So yeah, it's very important here. What information you need to give it to contractors or client, it's not necessary you need to give it to workers, right? So that's why we are talking about here. And unnecessary information also is not important because it might confuse people. Like for example, if any design change is there on site on any particular area, for example, A wing ground floor, there's a design change. So you have to mark A wing ground floor only. You can't revise whole drawing sets again and give it to them. Next is you should agree with the principal designers how information will be exchanged. So as a design team, principal designer is a head of a design team. Basically principal designer's main responsibility is to communicate all the design information and to ensure health and safety and environment are managed, coordinated and communicated during design stage. And if in case there is any residual risk. What is residual risk? For example, after preparing a risk assessment and a design risk review, even you think, okay, you can't mitigate 100% and there are some risks which are retained. Those are called residual risk. So that also information you need to give it to the people working on the information projects. So after completion of project, the other way of giving information to client is we again prepare as-built drawings. So in as-built drawings, we will cover all the design changes which has happened during the construction phase. So how do we actually do it? So I was talking about design risk assessment. You need to record your all risk on a design hazard record. First, you identify what are the risks, then you identify who might be harmed and what are the effect of those the risk, I'm sorry. And then you need to also mention what are the precautionary measures. And then we need to mention the RAG list, like if this hazard is red, green, or amber. So accordingly, we will tackle those risks. And when you are maintaining the design risk record, it's very compulsory to maintain on all the projects. Then you also need to identify and mention on the drawing. So if you see in a drawing, you need to have a SHE box, safety, health, and environmental box, where we are mentioning the residual risk. Residual risk basically, which we cannot tackle and we are retaining it. So that's how you need to mention on drawing so everybody's aware about it. See, again, you see in hazard table, we need to mention the residual risk and hazard warnings. What are the hazard associated with any specific area? And these are the hazard warnings. If you see, this is with the hazard symbol. We need to also be aware about safety and health and environment symbol, which we need to insert on the legends of our drawings. And we also need to mention the method state of methodology of work, we called work sequence. I'll give you a small example. For example, if you have to build a wall, so you need to mention the work sequence or method statement, how a person should build a wall. For example, first they need to lay the brick, then put the mortar. Then as height increase, you need to put the scaffolding. How safe should be scaffolding while doing the work? Then doing the plastering, how you should do the plastering bottom to top or top to bottom. So this is just an example how method statement should be there. And what risks are associated with each sequence, that also you need to mention in your method statement. That's called work sequence. So this you need to communicate to especially contractor and client and other designers within the team. So everybody is aware about it. So here I'm showing a case study for the construction phase. This is has happened in past, one of the project abroad. So the design spec was dig groundwater monitoring well at various locations, well located directly under overhead power lines. So this is very common in, you see a mega construction site, there will be some power lines going HA lines going above the construction site, right? So there was an accident, worker electrocuted when he was drilling and came in contact with the overhead power lines. So that was the accident. So when we are doing the design and we are looking to provide the, like for example, groundwater wells around the site, we need to be very careful. It's very important for a designer also to visit the site and see what other physical hazard you can see which are not recorded there in the pre-construction information, right? So you can specify wells be dug away from the power lines or inform contractor about the hazards. So they are also prepared and they also take the precautionary measures, what could be done. For example, they could connect with the electricity department and work on the timings when they can switch off these power lines, or they can reroute these power lines So these could be your recommendation when you are working on a design in six kinds. Then second, this is one of the airport. The designer has provided, if you see, it's at least double height ceiling area, and they have provided the CCTV. So as a designer, we need to think, okay, one of the issue here, what we see is the installation problem. It's a height work. There are possibility of falling of people from the height. Second issue, what we see here is maintenance issue, right? During the maintenance time, this is basically an airport, London Heathrow Airport. And if you see during the peak hours, if there's any issue with the camera, how you're going to operate or clean it or maintain it, whatever there are issues. And next to it, if you see there is a glass roof, there is no safe provision of providing a scaffolding also here. So it's very dangerous. People can't even walk on this glass sheet and maintain the camera work, right? So that's why we need to be very careful. More than aesthetic, we also need to look at health, safety, and environment of people working during all the life cycle. This is next case study. This happens a lot in, especially I've observed in UK, Europe, and even in US, where the colder regions are there. What happens during the snow time, snow falls all over the sheet and they cannot see where the skylight is. So there was one excellent case in Europe. One person was cleaning the snow from the rooftop and he fell down from the skylight and was paralyzed for life. So as a designer, what you could recommend, it's a second example on your right hand side. You can provide a mesh guarding to it. Even you can try to provide a small parapet wall around it. So we need to think as a designer how our design should not be harmful for people walking around. So, you know, this could be tackled during design stage itself, right? What you can do during construction stage, nothing. So that's why we need to be more vigilant on assessing our risk. Second is an example of demolition. These roofs are fragile roof, right? So as I told you, fragile roof, and this is also asbestos material, which is very harmful for people and environment if anybody inhales that. So we also need to focus during design stage how we can avoid such kind of hazards from any building. So we should avoid recommending the fragile roof, avoid any asbestos material, whether for insulation or whether for roof top, because people working on that area might not know, but in case in future there is any damage, they will be directly affected because of this issue. And this also can be tackled during the design stage, because later construction stage and demolition stage, it becomes very expensive as well as very harmful for people. I focus on health, but there are a lot of, I focus on safety, but there are a lot of health issues during the construction stage as well. We use a lot of chemicals on site. So our focus would be to avoid these chemicals. For example, welding fumes, we can avoid welding on site, and we can ask for prefabrication work, avoid asbesto, height works, or also high VOC paints. We should avoid them because they are not good for indoor air quality. Then second health hazard is physical. It could be noise, vibration, and radiation. So you see for breaking rocks, they're using a lot of vibrators. So people might get, these all are called occupational health issue, because these people are getting affected because of their occupation. So we should avoid these and recommend different work. For example, we have used diamond cut in one of our project to break the rocks, and we also used some chemicals to break the rocks, and we also do the control blasting within the legal framework. Then there are a few biological health hazards on site. We need to make sure before we are hitting the site, what could be the health hazard on that site. We need to assess those. And the ergonomics. Ergonomical issue could be manual handling, lifting and pushing, using wrong tools. So we should also recommend them what kind, like for example, shuttering work. So we should avoid mega shuttering work at site. We can get the prefab shuttering works on site, right? And so for manual handling, we can use cranes instead of people shifting it. So it will have less impact on their ergonomical and physical health. So this is a very good example or sequence of practice what we need to do. So first is like eliminate hazard at design stage, review design at concept stage. Have you design peer reviewed? So what peer review means, as a designer, when you make your design, you should be reviewed with the team or third person. So sometimes we tend to miss some risk, right? As I told you, risk is a perception, everybody sees differently. So it's always important to have a peer review within your team, or it could be a third party as well. Develop good working relationship with all the team holders or stakeholders in the project, say contractor, client, or subcontractors. Ensure you understand the scope of work. This we have covered. Undertake an early site visit if required. So I think it's very important for you to visit the site before you going for the design, because certain information might not be recorded, the information you get during the pre-construction information. Hold regular design meeting. The best practice is we hold these design meetings weekly basis until it is required. Verify design change. So obviously, whatever design change client has been asked, so always cross check with the stakeholder people, end user, as well as the peer review within the team. VO means visible openings we are talking here. Communicate with those you need to communicate with. For example, all the stakeholders of the project, your contractor, subcontractor, client, other designers. So for example, you are a designer for mechanical or civil, so you need to inform fire designer, you need to inform plumbing designer. So they also adjust their design accordingly, because end of the day, we work on GFCs, right? A GFC is combination of, good for construction is combination of all the discipline. Ask for photograph of the location to visualize the wider challenges of the design. So for example, as I told you, I work for UK projects, but it's not all the time I can visit the site. So how I visit the site? For my advantage, Google is really works very well for the UK area. So first I review my design through the Google 3D. Then I ask for the photographs from the site and videos of the site and the neighboring compound, what are the other properties in and around area. So that's very important. Complete risk assessment. This is a continual process. As I told you, it's a PDCA cycle, plan, do, check, act. So whenever we are maintaining a risk register, we should continue revisit the site, because when we are doing the design risk assessment during the design stage, we are looking at the drawings and we are preparing it. But there could be some changes or some new challenges on the site. That's why we should keep continuing reviewing these. Obtain any pre-construction information to assist with the design. All pre-construction information I informed you. Provide the right information to the right people. Transfer the right information at the right time. So these all we covered already. It's very important to follow this sequence. Use building information modeling. So as a construction industry, we are moving towards BIM, and slowly we are cutting down on AutoCAD 2Ds, because BIMs are better way of reviewing your design. For example, clashes. For example, in a building, there are fire pipes going inside the floor, and there are again ducts are running for air conditioning. So we can also identify if there are any clashes between these designs. Add risk information to your drawing. I've shown you in previous example how you can add those information in your drawing. Make sure you are using the latest design standard. So you also need to be aware about the design specification of the country you are working in, because we know these design stage, they keep changing. So for this, you can be part of some institute, for example, Chartered Institute of Civil Engineering. So in case there are any standard change or design change or regulation change, you are aware. You can also be part of, you can attend few seminars conducted in your sector. So you will be more aware about what is happening in the industry. Connect with the people who are already in the industry. You also get information from them. For example, some senior people working in the industry, different country, different region, or for example, different kind of project, because it's very rare that we experience all kind of challenges on one project. So remember, not everybody is a designer. So for example, client is not a designer, contractor is not a designer. So you need to remember that you need, for example, if you're coordinating with client, you are only collecting the information which is relevant to you to work on a design. So you are not seeking any design feedback from the client. So if you see UK's regulation, if anybody is giving any input on design, that person will also fall in regulation, and he will also hold a duty holder for a designer. Verify any design changes with your peers and even stakeholders. Be innovative. Be innovative means look for a new ways of tackling the design risks. And as I told you, there are various forums. You see, you should see it, articles or other institute, understand what is happening around the world in your industry, how you can implement those in your project. As I told you, like one size doesn't fit all, because everybody doesn't experience everything on one project, right? Yeah, this was the basic awareness program. If you guys want more detail, please, you can Google it. You'll find enormous of information around these topics, and try to build more on these information. For example, if you want to follow UK's, it's called CDM regulation 2015. If you Google it, you'll get it. And there is a also a L135 guidelines in the UK, which is issued by the Health and Safety Executive UK. Then around the world, they use different terms for this. Some people say safety by design. Some people say construction design management. It also known as prevention through design, right? So if you use these terms, you might find a lot of other information on the internet. And as I took you through the some topic, I just brush upon it. I have not gone in detail. For example, risk assessment. You can also read about it. What is risk assessment? How it is being done? And you can see a lot of examples. And you can also see a lot of YouTube videos on it. So read about it. So you will be ready when you are getting in the industry. This is from me. Now it's open to all of you guys. If you have any question about the topic, about the industry, anything. So yeah.
You could kindly type in your questions in the chat box. Thank you.
And career perspective, meanwhile you're typing your questions, I want to say career perspective, if you are actually focusing to getting into the construction design, my suggestion would be focus on BIM instead of AutoCAD 2D, because that's where industry is moving towards. As you know, we evolve and time change, and work culture and work process also change. You know, like 10, 20 years back, how these drawings were prepared, it was done manually, right? So then we moved to 2D. Now the industry is moving towards 100% BIM, building information management system. So there are two part of BIM. One is Revit modeling, one is civil 3D modeling. So you can choose any of these and enhance more and practice more. So when you are going for interviews or companies, you are ready to work on these design areas. Again, there are very specific area also in these. For example, structure design is different, highway, like the architectural design is different, landscape design is different. So there are different component on these platform itself. And as I told you, with my experience, we are looking to hire, for example, civil 3D BIM modeler, and we really have shortage of civil 3D designers in India. So my advice is for you guys to build your design skills towards BIM modeling instead of 2D AutoCAD. Do we have any questions? If you don't want to type, you can like say it as well. Okay, guys, no questions so far. We have 5 more minutes. We'll wait for 5 more minutes. Meanwhile, if you have any question, you may ask.
Yeah, sure.
And also in future, if anyone of you want to know more about the topic, you can contact me. I have my LinkedIn link here, and I can share few documents or links if you are interested. Yeah, I think we have one chat here. Akshay Kumar has asked, can you please brief if you possibly? Akshay, could you please ask me what you're talking about? Which topic? I think definitely we need to unmute people. Two people have raised
Yeah.
hands.
Sure. Yes.
All unmuted now?
Yes. Yes, Sham, you can go ahead. You have a question? Hello, Sham Kumar. You could type in the chat box if you're comfortable. Whoever has a question can unmute yourselves and, ask.
Yeah, you'll see this button here. Just click on this.
Yes, Subhash, there's a question on the chat box.
Yeah. So I was talking about Civil 3D and Revit. These are BIM software. So these are basically focused on designing stage. So these itself will take you a good time to basically brush up your skill, because saying unless you do actually practice on it, it will be difficult for you to pick up everything at one shot. And second thing is, what other software skills? So we have people who are using a lot of different software. For example, AutoCAD we use 3D Max also on our projects. AutoCAD business suite completely, because there are a lot of time when you need to put picturization on your project drawing as well. So that's why we use AutoCAD and 3D Max.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, what are the specific guidelines or standard for designing a skylight regarding material strength, orientation, and all that?
Actually, this is, again, people need to understand this. We are talking about design safety. We are not talking about design factor here. So these two topics itself are different. So we are, that's why I'm saying this topic itself is different. We are talking about eliminating health, safety, and environmental risk during the design stage. We are not talking about the design factor. So design factor itself is a different subject.
Only safety you are considering?
Safety, health, and environment. As a designer, what is the designer's responsibility? Safety factor will come when you will be attending structural webinar in future.
Okay.
We have not used MATLAB as of now, any of our project. So if you're asking that, MATLAB is more of a programming related. We also use GIS software for better representation on. The use of 3D Max is very, very limited, especially if you are trying to show to the client the 3D representation of any project or any specific area, but heavily used on construction design is Civil 3D, Revit, AutoCAD, whether it's AutoCAD industry or whether it's Bentley. Sanjeev, yeah, Sanjeev, you are saying you have knowledge on AutoCAD, Revit, and 3D Max is well enough for joining a company. See, you need to be very specific. What is your purpose and the area you want to join it, right? Because as a civil engineer, you might be joining as a designer, you might be joining as a site engineer, or you might be joining as a procurement engineer. So there are a lot of other disciplines. You might be joining in a project management team, contracting site, execution team, commissioning engineer. So you could be joining any team. So you need to be very specific which area you want and which is your expertise. For example, if you are joining planning team, right? So you need to know the planning softwares, right? MSP, for example, is one of the example for the planning software. So you need to know those. But if you're getting as a designer, as a civil engineer, yes, these knowledge are sufficient, but you need to enhance and build more and practice more. So it's easier for a company when you are with them, they invest less in your training and you're ready to work.
Thank you, sir.
Like, which are the software you suggest for us to be perfect with? See, I'll say focus on AutoCAD to start with. If you are new to this, it's basic, and then focus on Revit and Civil 3D. So these are extensively used in construction around the world, Civil 3D and Revit. See, when Akshay is talking about 3D modeling, VFX, etc., they are talking about I learned from home with the outline tutorial. See, when we are talking about working in an industry, certification is not important. What corporates see is what skills you have. For example, in Mumbai, few months back, we have conducted walk-in interviews for structural engineers to manage our railway projects in the UK. So a lot of people mentioned the software knowledge they have. Some people have certification, some people didn't have, some people have direct certification from the AutoCAD institute. But end of the day, we are going to conduct a test for them. After the face-to-face interview, we are going to give one mock model, and we are going to give some certain points, and we are going to ask them, okay, design this thing. So it's all depends on what skills you have, irrespective of whether you have certificate or not. Which software is better in design field? Actually, it's not which software is good or which software is not. It all depends on the requirement on the project and as well as the client's requirement. So we can't be expert in all. So that's why I said best would be to build either Revit or either Civil 3D, because they are used everywhere in any construction project. In India, majority of project we use AutoCAD 2D, but slowly we are going out of AutoCAD 2D phase, and everybody is moving towards either Revit or either BIM Civil 3D. Any other questions, guys? Learning animation VFX programming is not for design modeling. It's more for representation or showing to the client what you are expecting to achieve after completion of this project. Chetra, yes, please. Chaitra, you can unmute and talk, please. Or you can type it here as well. Okay, it's 4:06. We'll wait for 4 more minutes.
I think 1 or 2 questions in the end, and then we can close.
Yeah, yeah. Again, Akshay, you're talking about same method. We are talking more of safety by design, not design safety as specific. So here is a question asked by Akshay. All software are using FEM method now, but I still can achieve 100% accuracy due to limit of FEM. So in future, definitely going to be a structural webinar. So all your safety factor related issues or questions, you can ask them. So one best way to approach any webinar is like, if you know any topic or any webinar is going to conducted in future, you do your homework right before attending these webinar. So at least you have some questions to ask. Somebody asked me my LinkedIn. Chandan, again, I said this is not related to structure safety. So this question is to be raised in structure safety. This is basically work to analyze the design program during the structure analyzing.
I think, Subhash, we've exceeded time. They have more questions to ask. They could always write back later. Thank you so much for all your knowledge sharing. It was wonderful hearing you out of experience, and it has been a wonderful session. I hope all the students have learned a lot from today's session.
One sec now. Ma'am, sorry for the interceptions. And I'm having it out. We are not having any experience or anything. So that if we could come to your office, could you join us?
I'm sorry?
After completing our course, sir, if we come for the job, could you join us without any experience?
Of course, I mean, we or anybody in the industry, we don't take any experienced people, right? So we need people at all the levels. So we do hire graduates as well. So whenever there are requirements on our project, we publish on our website and we also post it on LinkedIn. If you're looking for a certain position, then people attend. The first thing what we do is we review the CVs, make sure your CV you have made is exactly what you know about yourself. Don't write anything which you don't know, right? For example,
Yeah.
you know AutoCAD, you know Civil 3D, but you don't know Revit, but you only know very basic. Don't write Revit, because when you're going for interview, people will assess everything what you have mentioned in your
Yeah.
CV. So whatever you are mentioning in CV, you should know 100%. A lot of people I've seen, they write, I know this code of practice, I know this code of practice, but when question asked, they can't answer. So don't put anything on your CV which you don't know, right? That's the first step. So that's how CV has been shortlisted, looking at your skills, what you mentioned in your CV. Then once we shortlist the CV, we call them for the face-to-face interview. Face-to-face interview will be obviously knowing you better, knowing your inspiration, the kind of work, the kind of projects you have done during your engineering. So get through knowledge of your project also, because as you are a graduate, people will try to dig down more on your project, what you're working on, because you don't have experience, right? Your project is only your experience as you are a fresher. So put your 100% when you're doing your project, and you should know in and out about the project, what you have done, how you have done, why you have done, why you have not taken any alternative approach, XYZ. It could be any kind of questions, right?
Yeah, sir.
Then the third thing is you need to work on your management skill. People might ask you some management related question. For example, what kind of person you to basically understand whether you fit for their company, even though you have complete knowledge, but they will see whether the person will fit in their work culture or not. So that's why they will try to understand. There will be some question related, okay, how do you manage challenges in your personal life? Give some example of challenges you have managed and outcome. How is your time management related issue? How you coordinate and how you talk with people, how you manage conflicts. So these kind of question also you need to prepare when you're going for interview, because I've seen a lot of time people get hired for their skills, but when they get fired, they fired for their soft skills, not for their technical skills. So you also need to work on your like soft skills. So build the
Yeah.
soft skills also, so you can adjust in the corporate environment or any company or any project.
Thank you, sir.
All right, then I think there are no more questions. Guys, here is my address for the LinkedIn. If you guys have any question anytime, you can just post me a message. And in case if you want to dig down more about the topic, I can share few links and few flyers, whatever I have. All right, guys, thank you very much for taking out your time. Thank you, Daphne and Prabhu. Firdos raised his hand. Last question. Let's hear from Firdos. No question? Okay, all right, guys, it's 4:15 now. If you guys don't have any question, we'll close the session. Thank you very much for taking your time and giving me opportunity to talk to you guys. As I told you, please reach out to me. I'll just write down my email ID also here. So if you have any question related to the topic, please can send an email also to me. Or if you can't think of any question and later you think of any question, then also you can just send your question. I'll respond to your question through email as well.
So mail ID.
It's in chat. Oh, sorry, it's, wait, I'll
It's not there,
just,
sir.
1 second, I'll make it to everybody. This is my mail ID. This is my LinkedIn address.
Yeah, sir. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
All right, guys, we will disconnect the call
Yeah.
now.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank
for
you
your
so much,
participation.
Subhash, for your time. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye, guys. Stay safe. Have a good weekend ahead.
Thank you.